birds. Who's that coming from?
That's coming from the trees.
If there are no trees next to you.
The birds have got some lungs on them.
I guess so. Are you going to lead kirtan?
I thought I would.
Okay. Too early to start kirtan?
Yep.
Turn your camera on? Oh. Thought you were starting.
Yep. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacacharya Ashtotar Satya Shri Shrimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. So, Maharaj is not here to give class, and my husband asked me if I would take responsibility for studying the verses and speaking a little bit, and I said, if he will also look at the verses and contribute, and of course, everyone else is welcome to contribute. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for being here. Today's verse starts with Adi Lila, chapter 3, text 12. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jayādvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jayādvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jayādvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So text 12 is Dasa Saka Pitamata Kantagana Lanya Vraje Krida Kare Krishna Prema Vistahanya. Translation: absorbed in such transcendental love, Lord Shri Krishna enjoys in Vraja with his devoted servants, parents, and conjugal lovers. Purport: the descent of Shri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is very purposeful. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one who knows the truth about Shri Krishna's descent and his various activities is at once liberated and does not have to fall again to this existence of birth and death after he leaves his present material body. In other words, one who factually understands Krishna makes his life perfect. Imperfect life is realized in material existence in 5 different relationships we share with everyone in the material world: neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental love, and amorous love between husband and wife or lover and beloved. These 5 enjoyable relationships within the material world are perverted reflections of relationships with the absolute personality of Godhead in the transcendental nature. That absolute personality, Shri Krishna, descends to revive the 5 eternally existing relationships. Thus, he manifests his transcendental pastimes in Vraja so that people may be attracted into that sphere of activities and leave aside their imitation relationships with the mundane. Then, after fully exhibiting all such activities, the Lord disappears. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I was just wondering, should I read also the English just for a refresher of those prayers? I will read. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivasa, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this text, actually, my husband had more to say on this text. If you would care to say the things that you were sharing with me earlier, and then I will jump on after that, that would be great.
Sure. So in text 12, absorbed in such transcendental love, Lord Sri Krishna enjoys in Vraja with his devoted servants, friends, parents, and conjugal lovers. And here, Krishna Das Kaviraj is giving us a glimpse into the private life of God. And he'll be quoting Krishna extensively coming up, where Krishna speaks about the reasons for his own descent. There are lots of them. And then the reasons for his descent as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are what's being aimed at in all these verses. And later, maybe tonight, we'll get to the verse where Krishna speaks about how most people see him, but they don't really see him. We see the effects in the material world. We see, what God does to create an illusion for us to think we're God, but we don't see him. We don't see the cause behind the effects. And so, if we have any concept of God at all, we think of him as, some great thing or some great non-thing, depending on our background, or the great creator, the all-knowing supreme, the all-powerful judge of our activities. And most of the information that we have about the supreme, this is something I've heard in classes from Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, is that we hear about him creating universes because that matters to us, because we're in those universes. But we don't hear about what he's doing when he's not creating universes. And in one sense, for anything Krishna does is Lila. He doesn't have to punch the clock. He doesn't have to work for anyone. So if he does something, it's because he wants to do it. And at the same time, even though for Krishna everything is Lila, there's different kinds of Lila. Like the material world is ruled by Mahamaya, or illusion, or it's where all the living entities, we're all parts and parcels of Krishna, but we don't want to see Krishna, so he keeps himself hidden from us. So that's the Mahamaya kind of Lila, the external potency Lila. But now what we're going to hear about, what specifically in this verse and in upcoming verses, is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to show us the internal potency Lila, what life is like when you are conscious instead of unconscious of him and his personality. And that's one of the real amazing special facets of Vedic literature, is that we're able to get a very specific picture of the Supreme Person, what he looks like, what he does, where he lives, and so that people may be attracted into that sphere of activities and leave aside their imitation relationships with the mundane. Those are some of the notes that I had there.
Thank you. There is a comment in the text, in the chat, from Saraswati Mataji. Hare Krishna. Pranams to you. Conditional jivas artificially try to enjoy the 5 types of relationships, but in reality, we have one primary relationship with Krishna from one of these categories, but also have secondary relationships with other liberated jivas. Well, don't we? We have, it's heard in the spiritual world that like gopis belong to different camps. They belong to Radharani's camp. They belong to Chandravali's camp, and the cowherd boys probably have their, little cliques or whatever, based on their service. So I'm not sure what is meant by secondary relationships, because it's, I guess you could say they're friends, but it's basically, it's all service related. And I don't think there are any, are there gopis married to gopas in the spiritual world, or is that only in the Bhoma Lila? I'm not sure about that. I don't know if that's part of the Lila for gopis to be married. It's not something that I've given a lot of thought to. I might have known it at one point and forgot. Do you know? Does anyone know? For sure. And then there's Krishna and Yashoda, Mata and Nanda Maharaj. There's the relationship, there's the paternal relationship, but then Yashoda has a relationship with Radharani, which is also maternal relationship, I guess, because it's, like a daughter-in-law, even though officially she's not married to Krishna. So I'm not sure what you mean by secondary relationship, but maybe you could expand on that if you want to get on the mic or type it in.
No, I think you've answered my question. I was just confirming that you have the one primary relationships, but here in the material world, of course, we're trying to enjoy all the different types of relationship, friendship, etc., parental and everything, even though here it's all an imitation. But I'm thinking that desire is there to enjoy the different types of relationship. But in the spiritual world, in the liberated state, you have that one primary relationship with Krishna, but you still have the ability to enjoy the other types of relationship, even though it would be secondary. That's the point I was trying to make. Thank you.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, I think any relationship, all kinds of varieties of relationships are possible because they're all in service. There are cows in the spiritual world. So you have a relationship with a cow if you're doing some service with that cow. You have relationships with flowers. You have relationships with, quote unquote, inanimate objects, except in the spiritual world, they have consciousness. I always love hearing that when Mother Yashoda was feeding Krishna and she had that pot of milk on the stove, that the pot of milk wanted her attention and was jealous or something, and so it boiled over to get her attention. I always thought that was hilarious and sweet and funny. So, there has to be, if a pot of milk can get jealous, then I guess there's all kinds of relationships between all types of entities in the spiritual world. What struck me about this is that I always like it when Prabhupada says that the absolute, when he uses the word revive, the absolute personality of Sri Krishna descends to revive the 5 eternally existing relationships. So that means we do have a relationship with Krishna, and it's gone dormant or half dead, but it's there within us. And I was thinking, just like in a dream, sometimes we'll have dreams and we dream the oddest things, and people that we don't ordinarily talk about, or don't ordinarily have a relationship with, will pop up in our dreams, or, celebrities, or, any, famous person, or somebody that you may have a relationship with, like a teacher, but then they turn out that they're your husband in the dream or something like that. So, to me, that's like an example of the perverted nature of our relationships, is that we think that this is my husband, or we think that this is my brother, or we think this is my friend, but it's all a sort of dreamlike imposition of what our real relationship is with Krishna and other parts and parcels in the liberated state, as Saraswati put it. But these relationships in this material world, they're dreamlike. They're not factual. And in dreams, the things are perverted. It's like walking into a fun house. I mean, I don't know if there's still fun houses going around, but you walk in and there are all these different mirrors, and one mirror makes you look very tall, and another mirror makes your head big and your body tiny, and another mirror makes you look fat, so it's a reflection. It's happening in real time, but it's not the actual way that you look. It's a distortion. So that's another way. Perversion and distortion are very similar in meaning. So all these relationships we have in the material world, they're reflections of relationships that we have with the absolute personality of Godhead in the transcendental nature, and that would include, I'm assuming, relationships with other beings in the spiritual world. So I think it's just funny, to imagine or to think about how our relationships in this material world, even though they may seem so pure and so real, they're distortions. It's not the real thing, just the way the funhouse mirror is not how we really look.
If I could say something too, is that okay?
Sure.
No,
You can do whatever you like.
All right. Well, I appreciated so much what Saraswati Mata was saying. I was thinking how one time I was reading the first canto in the passing of Bhishma Dev, and I thought it was interesting that when the Pandavas and Krishna came to the spot where Bhishma Dev was lying on his bed of arrows, it was described that Bhishma Dev looked upon the Pandavas with prema. And at the time, my understanding of things was, very, very rudimentary. So I thought it was very interesting that living entities can have prema for one another in the purest sense, and that prema is not reserved for only Krishna, but that all living entities have, in their purest state, they have prema for one another in relationship with Krishna. And like she's saying, there's our primary relationship is with the primary person, and I think Prabhupada himself said that variety is the mother of all enjoyment. I don't know exactly where he's quotes that from, but yeah, when he says here in this purport to 12 that he manifests his transcendental pastimes in Vraja so that people may be attracted into that sphere of activities. So that's a much bigger sphere than we have here.
Yeah, I was thinking, in maybe in the absolute sense, they're not even secondary relationships. That, Krishna is not. He's there's, as Prabhupada says, there's no meaning to Krishna without his energies. So we can feel like even in this world right now, our relationship with our spiritual master, what is the meaning of our relationship with Krishna without our spiritual master? You know, there is no meaning. We can't access Krishna without the spiritual master. And we can say, you know, we can't access Krishna without the devotees. So what is the question of secondary? It's Krishna and his parts and parcels, and that's it. It's all one. I shouldn't say it's all one, but it's unified, you know. It's you know, you can't separate them. It's, you know, you say, well, I have a relationship with Krishna, but I don't need my relationship with this person or that person. It's like everyone is helping us. Everyone is essential. It's when our relationships are materially tinged that they become dispensable, because, you know, as soon as there's some interruption to the sense gratification, then we ditch them, you know. But when we are fully absorbed, fully aware, then we don't see these personalities as dispensable, even if they're not always immediately, you know, we're not always immediately engaged with them, you know. So
another thing I just thought of is something that Jayādvaita Maharaj once said. I don't know if it's to me specifically, but he said, in spiritual life, you can choose your friends. So that has all kinds of implications.
shall we move on to the next text? All right. Oops. Question from Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Question number 1. Yes, the Lord disappears, but he leaves behind him Srimad Bhagavatam. My question is, what is the end result of reading and studying Srimad Bhagavatam? Is it that if I regularly read and study Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, I will always be in the intimate association of Lord Krishna and never feel his absence? And if your answer is yes, can you give me at least one Shastric reference, please? The answer is yes. And I will give the Shastric reference later, unless my husband wants to give one right now.
I know which one you're thinking of, and I'll look it up.
Well, the one that I'm thinking of, it's actually funny that he asked that question, because when I was doing my research for this, I came upon something in a purport, which technically can qualify as Shastra, but not necessarily literally qualify as Shastra in the way that he's asking. So yeah, the answer is yes, and we'll get into that more in a little bit. So going on to the next verse, did I post the English for that? I will post it right now. Okay. Would you like to read the text? The Bengali and the English.
I'm researching that reference right now.
Okay, I will read that then. Yatishta vihari Krishna kare antardhana kari mane kare anumana. Lord Krishna enjoys his transcendental pastimes as long as he wishes, and then he disappears. After disappearing, however, he thinks thus. Text 14. Chirakala nahi kari prema bhakti dana, bhakti vina jagatera nahi avasthana. For a long time, I have not bestowed unalloyed loving service to me upon the inhabitants of the world. Without such loving attachment, the existence of the material world is useless. Purport. The Lord seldom awards pure transcendental love, but without such pure love of God, freed from fruitive activities and empiric speculation, one cannot attain perfection in life. So I don't know why, but I always like this translation. For a long time, I have not bestowed unalloyed loving service to me upon the inhabitants. For that long time, it's like, okay, Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, and then he appeared again 500 years ago. And I think for him, it's nothing's a long time. Everything is, like that. Whenever he wants, he's always there, wherever he needs to be at any time. But I'm assuming, or I'm speculating, that this long time means, it's for us. It's for us. For us, it's a long time. He appeared, and then 5,000 years goes by, and we, those pastimes are they're present in the material world in forms of oral history, because they weren't written for the longest time. But then they gradually became forgotten. And we see is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told the Goswamis to uncover the places of pastimes and to write about the pastimes. So those things were gradually lost. And so Krishna says, for a long time, we need a refresher, we need a reminder. Did you the question that Vijay Krishna Prabhu asked, I was going to address that a couple of verses down, but if you want to bring up what verse you were thinking about now, you can. Here's a message in the chat. Okay, you found one reference. Would you like to read about it now?
Sure. Well, the one I was thinking of is from Prabhupada puts it in Krishna book in chapter 11, where he says that he's speaking of the cowherd boys and the cowherd girls talking about Krishna, and what Prabhupada says is they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. What was enjoyed 5,000 years ago by Nanda Maharaj can still be enjoyed by Krishna-conscious persons simply by talking about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates.
That's one of my favorites. It's very sweet, and it kind of nails it on the head, that we associate with Krishna through sound, and that sound is delivered to us via the Bhagavatam. It is the sound. So what I was thinking of, I think I would like to go on to the next verse, unless you want to say anything about text 14. Yes, no? No?
Nope, let's go on.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, he's here.
Yes,
May
Yes.
I?
yes, Prabhu.
Yes. Kendra Prabhu, did you extract the passage you just recited from Krishna book?
Yes, indeed.
Which chapter?
Chapter 11.
Yes, I'm writing it down. Chapter 11. What is the title?
The title of the chapter, I don't have it in front of me here.
No problem. No problem. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, moving on to text 15. Sakala jagate more kare vidhi bhakti vrajabhava paite vidhi bhakti vrajabhava paite nahi shakti. Everywhere in the world, people worship me according to scriptural injunctions, but simply by following such regulative principles, one cannot attain the loving sentiments of the devotees in Vrajabhumi. Would you like to read the next one, my dear husband?
Sure. Aishvarya jnanete sabha jagat mishrita, Aishvarya sitila preme nahi mora prita. Knowing my opulences, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration, but devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. You want to read the purport?
You can read it.
After his disappearance, Lord Krishna thought that he had not distributed the transcendental personal dealings with his devotees in Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. One may understand the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedic literatures, and thus become a devotee of the Lord and worship him within the regulative principles described in the scriptures. but one will not know in this way how Krishna is served by the residents of Brajabhumi. One cannot understand the dealings of the Lord in Vrindavan simply by executing the ritualistic regulative principles mentioned in the scriptures. By following scriptural injunctions, one may enhance his appreciation for the glories of the Lord, but there is no chance for one to enter into personal dealings with him. Giving too much attention to understanding the exalted glories of the Lord reduces the chance of one's entering into personal loving affairs with the Lord. To teach the principles of such loving dealings, the Lord decided to appear as Lord Caitanya.
So I wanted to get some input from others here because I did some research into this and I wasn't entirely clear on what is meant here by ritualistic regulative principles. And based on the research that I found, and I may do a share here, it's not something that is at the forefront of my mind. So I had to do a little research and I'm still not 100%. I don't feel extremely conversant with this, so maybe someone else can chime in. I'm going to share here. I found this lecture by Prabhupada where he mentions this. So he talks about, it reminded me of, when we, early on I learned about that there's two tracks. There's the Pancharachika Vidhi and the Bhagavat Marg. And those, you have deity worship on the one side and the different processes of devotional service on the other side. And I found this lecture where Prabhupada is talking about this. And he says here, but of course, Pancharachika Vidhi is recommended in the second canto. That another Pancharachika Vidhi is worshiping the gigantic form of the Lord. So we're learning about that right now in the Bhagavatam, the universal form. These things are there, but both combined together, it is very much helpful. Bhagavat Marg. Bhagavat Marg will help the Pancharachika Marg or process, and the Pancharachika process will help the Bhagavata process. Both together are helpful. So elsewhere, there is a discussion. Let me see if I find this. So Prabhupada says, we are trying to follow Sanatana Swami by Diksha Vidhanena, by initiating persons from anywhere. It does not matter. But because in this age, Kali Yuga, the Diksha Vidhana is performed according to Pancharachika Vidhi, not Vaidika Vidhi. Vaidika Vidhi is very strict. Unless one is bona fide son of Dvija, the initiation was not given. To the Shudras, there was no initiation. A Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya. So these are the Vedic process. So, this is something that I was not acquainted with before, that there's a difference between Vaidika Vidhi and Pancharachika Vidhi. I am not at all qualified to comment on this, but it seems that what Prabhupada is talking about in this chapter here, where he says ritualistic regulative principles is what he's talking about with the Vaidika. And this Pancharachika, which was, who was it that wrote the Pancharachika Pradeep?
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. That's a compilation from various sources.
Right. So that Vaidika seems to be the very strict, that you have to be born a Brahmin and you have to follow, a million, like there are so many rules that Brahmins have to follow, and Shudras do not get initiated and women do not get initiated. But this Pancharachika, I got to find it elsewhere. Prabhupada said, even anybody, women, Shudras, anybody can get initiation. So it seems that there's a distinction between the very strict, as Prabhupada said in that one transcript, and the Pancharachika, which is deity worship that is recommended to help you, along with the Bhagavat Marg. Bhagavat Marg. I don't want to be redundant here. So I'm not really enlightening anybody with this, but I'm just saying I did the research and that's what came up for me. If somebody who has more experience or knowledge on this wants to chime in, please do so. But, because otherwise it would seem to be contradictory, because we have, Prabhupada gave us deity worship, and that's ritualistic and it's full of rules, but it's not the same thing apparently as the Vaidika, which is, the very, very strict Brahmins only, millions of rules, and you live your life completely, circumscribed by particular rules, which I've, just very vaguely heard about, that Brahmins live according, very strict Brahmins live according to such rules.
Right. Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu speaks about this, and I'm thinking it's in his series of lectures on the Shvetashvatar Upanishad, where he quotes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nam Nam Makari Bahudha Nijasarva Shakti Statrapita Niyamata Smarane Nakala, that there's so many Vedic mantras, and they all have to be chanted with the proper intonation at the proper time by the proper person under the proper conditions. But the Maha Mantra that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute, there are no such restrictions for that. So, like you say, it's open to everyone, as well as the full range of relationships with Krishna, but by the grace of Lord Chaitanya. Otherwise, how would we have access to that?
So one thing I wanted to add, in answer to Vijay Krishna Prabhu's question, going back, is in the preface to the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada talks about how the Bhagavatam gradually develops, through 9 cantos up to the highest state of God realization. And the only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step cautiously. And then later on in the paragraph, he says it should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is so arranged with the original Sanskrit text, its English transliteration, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. So, to me, that promise that he makes, that you go through the first 9 cantos, and then you hear about the direct transcendental activities of Krishna, the personality of Godhead, that seems to me to be, if you're God realized, then yes, you are in the intimate association of Krishna and never feel his absence. And that Bhagavatam arose after the disappearance of Lord Krishna. So Krishna appeared, but even when he was present on this earth, only a few people saw him. And not only that, he appeared as Krishna, but maybe not everybody was aware of his, of his appearance as Varaha, his appearance as Nrsingadev, whatever. But everything is there in the Bhagavatam. So you certainly you will have, the association of Lord Krishna, because he is the Bhagavatam. That's him. It's all about him. And so that's the best way we have to associate with Krishna in his physical absence. Shall we move on to the next verse?
We have a hand up.
Oh, we do? Oh, the Saraswati, please.
Yes, I'm just wanting some clarification on here where it says giving too much attention to understanding the exalted glories of the Lord reduces the chance of one's entering into personal loving affairs with the Lord, because surely if it just, to me, you have to kind of understand the exalted glories first anyway. Otherwise, you might get a section of the population thinking, oh, well, now I know so much about his relationships in Vraj Bhumi. So, it's the kind of like familiarity breeds contempt. You think like, okay, well, now, I know him. He's my pal. He's my son. Or to me, then it will become so cheap. So I think you have to understand the exalted glories. You have to understand that unique position, of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you have to sort of glorify that position of his before you, otherwise the whole thing, just to me, it sounds like it just all becomes so cheap. You might think, oh, well, now I know everything about I know so much about his dealings with the gopis or Mother Yashoda. And then, so I'm one of the crowd. You might start thinking, the whole thing, just to me, it's like it becomes so cheap. I don't know if you have something to say about this.
No, I'm glad you asked that, because actually I noticed that too, and I thought about it, and then I didn't say anything about it. So that phrase "too much" and that word "understanding" and attention, it made me think of something. First of all, I think the factor that makes a difference is service. Because understanding it's an intellectual, mental process. Understanding, we can try to understand, but when we do service, it involves the whole person. And because we are in the bodily concept, when we engage our body, mind, and words, which 2 out of 3 of those involve the physical body, it creates an impression on us. And that impression, of course, is going to engage our emotions. So, that's the trick about having a relationship with Krishna. We're going to develop these emotions. We're going to develop these feelings for Krishna. Now, this too much attention, the thing that came to my mind is when let's say somebody's studying a subject, you go to high school and you study general subjects, English, history, math, chemistry, whatever. And then you go to college and you go a little deeper and you may get a major, right? And the major is, still deeper knowledge. And then you get a PhD. And what you do is you narrow down on one little particular. So like, let's say you major in entomology, you're studying bugs in college and you're undergraduate. And then you study a PhD and you study the wing of a particular insect. So you're focusing in on a very specific aspect. So this is not what is being referred to getting too specific, but what I was getting from it is that that there might be a tendency to focus too much on, I'm going to know this about the Lord and that about the Lord, and this tattva and that tattva and the other thing, and you're not doing service. Studying about it is service also, but it may be limited to what you can understand mentally, and you're not engaging in service with your whole life. Just like, the example is often given of the gopis, the gopas, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj. They didn't know that Krishna was God. Well, in one sense, yes, they did. But in another sense, it wasn't like at the forefront. They were like, oh, he's God. Well, how is he God? He did this. No, they just see his cute little smiling face, or see how beautiful he is, or the way he dresses. And it's a constant shifting of attention. First, it's how he dresses, and then it's the way he jokes. Then it's how he moves his eyebrows. They're not trying to analyze him. So that's what this too much attention to understanding means. When you get analytical and you're not letting the love come out, you're trying to understand God. You're trying to make him make sense somehow. That's my conception, or that's my understanding of this. I don't know if that's helpful to you or not. If my husband or anybody else wants to jump in here. All right. Oh, wait, Haridas Prabhu has a comment here. To support Srimati Saraswati's viewpoint, Bhagavad Gita 10:7, one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. Purport, excerpt. The highest summit of spiritual perfection is knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is firmly convinced of the different opulences of the Supreme Lord, he cannot engage in devotional service. Generally, people know that God is great, but they do not know in detail how God is great. Here are the details. If one knows factually how God is great, then naturally he becomes a surrendered soul and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Okay, yeah, of course. So my question is there a fine line where you study the opulences of the Lord And then at some point, you got to do something about it. You've got to engage, you got to engage. It may be, I mean, I guess some people can just read Bhagavatam all day and go into a minute analysis of Krishna's glories, but that's not the process that Prabhupada gave us. And it doesn't seem to be the process that Mahaprabhu gave us, limited to that. It's like, yes, we study. Yes, we learn about the glories of the Lord, but then you go hit the streets and you chant and dance, because you have to do something with that knowledge. You have to live. It has to be lived knowledge. It just can't be known knowledge. It has to be lived knowledge. And the most important thing is you share that knowledge. You share it. So you know it, you learn it, you study it, you absorb it, you know it, and then you share it. So if that sounds like a reasonable understanding of what Prabhupada is saying in that, he doesn't actually say it there, but it says to teach the principles of such loving dealings, the Lord decided to appear as Lord Caitanya. So by example, he sets the example. Of course, he was learned. He spent the early part of his life as a student and as a teacher, and then he took it to the streets. He took it to the people. So how does that answer strike you, Saraswati Prabhu? Oh, she says, thank you for clarifying. I don't know if I clarified, but that was the insight that I got. My dear husband, do you have anything to say more on that?
Well, I was thinking how when Srila Prabhupada established Radha Krishna deity worship in the West, he did so along the lines of Lakshmi Narayan worship. Things very, very much in terms of the opulence of the Lord, not on the spontaneous platform of worshiping Krishna in Vraja. And so I think there's very the danger of a Western convert giving too much attention to understanding the exalted glories of the Lord, I think, is relatively low. we need to know those glories, and like you say, that's what the first 9 cantos are for. That's what Lakshmi Narayan worship is for. You should be steeped in the understanding of those glories, and as we'll read in upcoming verses in the CC here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself gives further light on this very topic, that he comes to expand people's appreciation of the personal, what does it say? Personal loving affairs. It almost sounds like here there's a danger of going to Vaikuntha if you give too much attention to understanding the exalted glories.
Yeah. But I think we've seen, even in our own lives, somebody who's very absorbed in deity worship, but then somebody new comes to the temple and they don't want to deal with them. It's like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to do my deity seva and then go read Bhagavatam. So I mean, I don't know if that's an actual example of that, of what is being described here, but that's how I see it. And so it's I think that rasa of taking our knowledge of the Lord's glories and then distributing that to me is the way that you don't have too much. You don't have too much of, you don't get absorbed, because that mood of sharing Krishna, that's very spontaneous. That's very spontaneous. If you really have absorbed the understanding of the glories, why wouldn't you want to tell people? Why wouldn't you? And then if you haven't absorbed it, then maybe you need to study some more. Maybe you need to read some more.
Saraswati has a hand up.
Yes, Saraswati Prabhuji.
I wanted to share something, an interaction that I had with my grandmother when I was really young. I was telling her that I feel really resentful that there are these devotees that have had personal relationships with Krishna, and then they should tell us that, that whatever relationship they're having with Krishna, it all seems so hidden and shrouded in mystery. So she looked at me and she said, okay, well, you tell me then. And I don't know, I was so astounded. I'm like, no, I'm talking about devotees that have had personal dealings with Krishna and they know about Krishna. And they shouldn't keep it so hidden. Whatever relationship they've got with Krishna, they should tell us, what they feel. And so my grandmother said, yes, exactly. So now you tell me. And I'm like, well, I'm talking about those devotees. And she's like, yes. So you tell me, how do you feel about Krishna? And I'm like, no, I'm talking about those that have had. And she's like, yes, I know what you're saying, but I want to hear from your lips. You are keeping it hidden. You tell me now. How do you feel when you see Krishna, pictures of Krishna, deity, when you interact with him, when you're offering him prasad? You tell us now. How does it feel? So she kind of alerted me to the fact all, deity worship, or you're seeing pictures of Krishna, whatever appreciation, whatever feelings are coming, those are real. It's not like the deity is different from Krishna as he is. That's the point she was trying to make. So she's like, yes, of course, go ahead. We will love to hear. How do you feel about Krishna? Thank you so much.
Your grandmother is a very wise person, very wise lady. Yeah, we all have to do our little bit, like Prabhupada gave so much praise to Saraswati, Shamasundar Prabhu's daughter, a little girl, and she would just go up to people, do you know who is Krishna? And they go, who? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She's just 3 or 4 years old, and that's all she can say. But that was enough. And it's, we don't know what kind of impact that has, and I think it's we got a comment here from Prabeen Prabhu. From Lilamrita, Uddhava confided to Kim that he felt left out because he never had any questions to ask Prabhupada. Kim encouraged him. One night, Uddhava finally asked, but it was a strange question. Swamiji said, Uddhava, what is Radharani's relationship with Krishna's brother, Balaram? Prabhupada was annoyed. Why are you asking that? You don't even understand the basic principle of Bhagavad Gita. You don't understand the nature of the soul and the super soul or Krishna and devotional service. And yet you are asking questions like this? For a long while, Uddhava didn't ask again. I feel indicted by this comment because I think I many times I ask questions that are just way, what is not in my wheelhouse. I don't know what that expression means, but I think it means I've got no business asking such a question. And so I can relate to what poor Uddhava had to his chastisement. Yeah. So yeah, you start with the basics, and then one thing leads to another. One thing leads to another. It's very natural. Prabhupada uses the example. I can't remember the verse right now in the purport, but he says you learn how to type with the typing. You follow the instructions in the typing manual, and you practice and you practice and you practice. And then at some point, you don't need the typing manual anymore. So this whole process that he gave us is like the typing manual. We've got, deity worship, offering prasad, reading Bhagavatam, morning program, all of that kind of stuff. And you just, you do it. And, your heart may not be completely in it at first, and you're going through the motions. But then at some point, it becomes second nature. And if you're, the linchpin of the whole thing is chanting with attention. If you're chanting with attention, then the consciousness gets purified. And Vijay Krishna Prabhu keeps posting heart emojis up here. He must like what's being said. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yes, I like it very much. Thank you very much.
But chanting with attention is the central point of all of it, because yeah, you can go through the motions, but if you're not purifying your consciousness, you're going to be going through the motions for a long time. So there's, japa, kirtan, prasadam, deity worship, Bhagavatam, serving the guru. But if, the consciousness has to rise to the point of spontaneity. And if you're stuck in the material consciousness because you're not allowing it to be cleansed by the process of hearing and chanting, then you'll keep getting purified until eventually, it's like, okay, now I'll start paying attention, Let's see. I thought somebody else posted something else. Thank you for that quote, Prabeen Prabhu. And it looks like it's time for our second kirtan of the evening. So who is going to lead the second kirtan? Panchatattva Prabhu is here.
He's present twice in the participants list, so he's really here.
Well, then he can do a duet with himself. Is he here? Maybe he's traveling and he's just listening right now.
No, he's outside. He's listened to class outside.
Oh, okay. Does he? So I guess he doesn't want to lead kirtan.
I know he's hearing me. I'm inside.
Oh, okay. I could lead kirtan if my dear husband comes in here with the mridanga. Here he comes.
Haribo.
Oh, there he is. Panchatattva Prabhu, you want to lead kirtan? Outdoors,
Outdoors in the Alachua rain.
in the wide open spaces.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo!
Haribol, Jai, thank you so much. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice class. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Nice hat.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to see you outside in your Prabhu Detta dish.
I kind of cheated. Today I was working on building a pump shed while listening to class.
Ah, okay.
Trying to do too many things at once.
multitasking. So thank you to everyone for taking part and participating. Well, that's redundant. Thank you for participating. Thank you for attending. And we will be picking up next week again with text 17. So I will bookmark that. And Prabin Prabhu asked about the classes in New Vraj Mandala in Spain. And Rabbi Kunj Mataji shared that with me, the links to that, and I have not uploaded those videos to the YouTube channel, but I will. But what I'll do right now is if anybody speaks Spanish, I will post the links right now for you to look at in Facebook. They're in the Facebook platform, and I will post those links right now, and you can look at them there. Is this working? Hold on. Just give me 1 second here. I have 2 links. Here's one. And like I said, they're both in Spanish. But it's nice even to hear Marj speak in Spanish. One time I went to a home program and I took my mother along. My mother has Spanish speaking background. And Maharaj there's a whole funny story behind it. Someday I'll tell it. But Maharaj, the first thing he said before he started speaking is he welcomed my mother. And she was very pleased to be acknowledged in front of everyone. And then the second thing is he gave the class both in English and in Spanish. And my mother was extremely impressed by that. So it's kind of nice to hear Maharaj speak in Spanish. So there are the links, and I will also get those videos uploaded to the YouTube channel as soon as possible. Thank you again for attending. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai. All glory to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And all glories to Tulasi Priyadasi Mataji. Wonderful class. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you to my husband for his participation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.